Yo, what's good, Celtics fans? Welcome back to another episode of Taylor Talks Celtics with me, your boy, Adam Taylor. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, do all that good stuff. If you're wondering who I am, I've been covering the Celtics for nearly 10 years, places like Celtics blog of SB Nation. I'm with USA Today's Celtics Wire, and also the Celtics Chronicle newsletter. There's links in the description. Hit that up during the season. You'll get analysis every day to your inbox. Today, I wanted to talk about the front court. The front court at the moment consists of, and we're just looking at the big man rotation specifically in that front court right now. That consists of Neemias Queta, Luka Garza, and Xavier Tillman. That's your list. That's everybody. If you look, that's the big man list. Luke Kornet, gone. Kristaps Porzingis, gone. Al Horford, in limbo, most likely, gone. The problem is the Celtics are still just on the verge of being a second apron team. They got under that second apron when they waived JD Davison a week or so ago now. But in the grand scheme of things, they're still going to be right on that verge unless they make another deal to move on from someone like Anthony Simons or George Niang, or package both of them and obviously drop down, hopefully, towards the lower end of that first apron, the first cap, the first luxury tax apron, or to get underneath that luxury tax altogether. If they can do that, then it's more sustainable for them to make a move and try and pick somebody up either in free agency, or maybe try and bring back another big in a trade that involves Simons or Niang or both or whoever else. Sam Hauser's another guy that's been floated around as a trade piece as well. Outside of that, they are going to probably be restricted to either running with the trio that they've got, with Nemi most likely being the starting big, Luka Garza being your backup, and then Tillman probably sliding between the 4 and the 5. We haven't seen much of Tillman since he come over to the C's. Been dealing with that knee issue for a while now. Pretty much restricted him all last season and from like the 20, 30 games they had from the season before when he got traded for. I'm a bit kind of sad about that because the whole idea was that Tillman could learn from Horford and potentially be that long-term Horford replacement. And that could still be the case. That could still happen. But from what we've seen in the limited minutes that we've seen and what we've seen in terms of the Celtics looking for other people to pick up, they went out and picked up Garza. That's probably going to be ahead of him in the rotation. That's not looking super logical or like it's going to work out. And if it does, it'll be with Tillman more at the 4 than at the 5 just because of the lack of height. You're not going to want to play that small all the time. It's different if you've got like a Draymond there that's like generational defensive IQ, but asking Tillman to do that long term isn't really the smartest play. So what I wanted to do today is I just wanted to run through the available free agent bigs that are currently available and see how they would fit. So there's 9 players in total that are primarily a 5 that are available on the free agency market. One of them is an automatic and not going to happen if we assume that he's signing elsewhere, and that's Al Horford. So that brings us down to 8. Again, there's a couple here that I'll run through quickly where I'm like, their age doesn't fit the retooling kind of segment of what we're looking for the Celtics. So that's Taj Gibson. He's 40, doesn't fit a retooling roster. If you're going to pick him up, you do so more as like a vet leader to try and help some of the younger guys develop. It's not really what the Celtics need right now. You can rule him out. Jim Thompson, 34, looks like he's closer to 44. He just doesn't seem to have anything left in the gas tank. We can rule him out. DeAndre Jordan's 37. We can rule him out. Alex Len, Bismack Biyombo, both in their early 30s at 32. We can rule both of those guys out. So that leaves us with 3 dudes, basically, in terms of Thomas Bryant, Charles Bassey, who a lot of Celtics fans are high on after what he showed during Summer League, and Micah Potter. Now, I'm going to exclude Micah Potter here, mainly because I haven't seen enough of him to give an opinion. And I think that it'll be disingenuous for me to include him in a conversation where I want to be talking about 2 dudes that I have seen at least enough of to be like, yeah, it could work, it might work. So we're going to just say Potter's a no-go. That leaves us with 2. It leaves us with Thomas Bryant and Charles Bassey. That's the entire available primary 5s in the free agent market. We could, if we wanted to include some 4s, we could go and add Precious Achua there because he's versatile enough that he could play up at the 5 or at the 4. And if we did do that, I think he'd probably be the guy I leaned into the most. But if we're sticking just with out-and-out 5s, because we're going to work under the notion that if Tillman does earn minutes, it's going to be at the 4 anyway, that gives us Bryant and Bassey. And out of these 2, I think I'm leaning towards Thomas Bryant primarily because the reason that he's more developed in terms of what you're going to get than what Charles Bassey is. Now, a lot of people are high on Bassey because of what they saw during Summer League. The problem is, what you see in Summer League doesn't guarantee a translation to the NBA. There's such a huge jump, and we say this about the G League a lot, right? Like, you look at JD Davison, was a G League MVP, but got waived after sitting at the end of Boston's bench. The gap between the G League and the NBA is somewhere like here, like, we can't even fit it in the camera. And then Summer League's below that. So there's like such a chasm from being great in Summer League to being great in the NBA, or even passable in the NBA, that it's really hard to be like, this dude done well, so it's gonna work if we move him up and he's gonna get a big role. It's great. I'm just as bad as everybody else for doing that. But I'm just also quite realistic where I'm like, hey, Thomas Bryant has been a proven commodity on multiple NBA teams. He's been a starter on teams. He's become off the bench. He was part of that Indiana Pacers team last season. He's not a great three-point shooter, but he's around about 35% on his career. Low volume. If I just pull it up, we can actually have a look at where exactly he sits there, actually. If we go to Thomas Bryant on Basketball Reference, career 34.6% from deep on 1.5 attempts per game. So it's low volume, but there's volume there. It's a consistent almost 2 shots, 1.5, 2 shots a game, sitting just under league average. You can scale that. He's also only 28, so he's coming into his prime now. You're not going to get much more development out of him, but you're going to be able to be like, yeah, we can sit with this for a year while we develop Luka Garza, while we see what Neemias can do, and just have a little bit more competition at the 5. I also think in terms of rebounding, he can give you a little some at summit. He's not the best. He's also not the biggest. He's at 6'10". Probably more of a power forward than a center, but plays at the 5. Quite physical, can screen well. The downside is the defense, right? So defense is always a hard one to quantify statistically. It's a team stat. Anyone that tries to pinpoint defensive impact on an individual is probably missing a ton of what's going on the floor around them, the help defense, the perimeter defense. Why have you been put on into pressure? Who got beat? Are you being defended in space? Are you defending in space? Are you defending in a system? Do you have a couple of guys pinching in? There's so much going on. But if you just, I like defensive estimated plus minus because it takes into account the players that are on the floor with you. It takes into account the team's defense in general and looks and just estimates the impact. And defensive plus minus to me is one of the more stable ones to look at here. Sorry, defensive estimated plus minus is one of the more stable ones to look at here. And Bryant's been a net negative for 4 seasons. He's been under 0.0 for 4 seasons. On average, he played for 2 teams last season. He was on Indiana and with Miami. Per 100 possessions across his time with both teams, his teams were being outscored by 1 point per 100 possessions with him on the floor. So that's not awful, but it's also below league average. I think it put him in the 36th percentile for bigs, which means that, what's that, 74%, but 70, 80, 90, maybe 64, I don't know. Anyway, it just means that a lot of bigs are doing a better job defensively than what he is. I'm still of the belief that he's probably a better option for you than Neemias in a sense. I think that Neemias is another one of these guys that has been great in a limited role for the Celtics, has had a few spot starts and they've worked out well for him. But in the grand scheme of things, his defense is still a problem. He bites on every pump fake, or most pump fakes. He fouls a lot. His rotations are often slow or behind the beat. And for someone with such a high motor, you'd want him to be beating guys to the spot rather than chasing guys and then fouling. And when you look at that, and then you look at the fact that he doesn't space the floor, his rolls are usually, when his rolls to the rim are usually mistimed, doesn't really have a great touch around the rim. I don't actually see where the upside is, to be quite honest with you. A season of Neemias at the 5 is going to be painful to watch. And I know he has a lot of people who really like him. That's not for me. I think that he's going to be good, but he's not going to be great. I think that there's a world where he starts as the starting 5 and Luka Garza kind of beats him to that spot midway through the year. Ideally, I'd like someone with a little bit more experience there. I think Thomas Bryant could be that guy, at least to keep pressure on Neemias, so if Neemias does get that starting role, there's someone else breathing down his neck other than Luka Garza, who's unproven at the NBA level right now, if we're being quite honest with ourselves. Barely broke any kind of consistent role with the Timberwolves last season. I mean, Chris Finch has a deep team available to him, and we could say the same about Josh Minott if we wanted to, just being unable to break into that Timberwolves rotation. But now it's like two unproven bigs fighting for minutes, and I get that this is the point of a retooling roster in the sense that, hey, you want to try and get some of these unproven guys that haven't had their opportunities elsewhere and see who can stick and who can pop and who can prove that they can be there long term. Or they can build their trade value and you can flip them for somebody that's actually going to be able to make an impact. That's the whole point of everything the Celtics are trying to do now, is to try and find these diamonds in the rough, trying to build trade value, trying to get more back than what they gave out to get the guy in the first place. But you also want to try and win, right? Or at least as a Celtics fan, I want to see them win. But I think that any team that has Jaylen Brown and Derek White in the rotation is going to be just too good. Not good enough to compete, but just too good to bottom out. So unless you're going to basically tell Derek and Jaylen midway through the season, you're sacrificing half a year of your career so we can chase a draft pick, and you're telling Joe Mazzulla that it's time to tank, unless that's happening, the big man rotation needs to be improved. And Thomas Bryant isn't exactly an improvement, but is the best of the available bunch outside of doing a trade. That is somebody I'd look at there. If you wanted Charles Bassey instead, then I wouldn't hate that. I wouldn't be against you. I wouldn't be like pushing back too hard. What I would say is Bassey has some experience. Okay, so let's just put it in just terms of game experience. So Bryant has played 333 regular season games, 23 postseason games. Charles Bassey has played 113 games. He's 24, so he's 4 years younger than Bryant. He's played 113 games and 3 playoff games. Now, the good thing about Bassey is I feel like his movement's better. His defensive timing felt like it was really good and there was some scope to improve. He's young enough to keep developing his game, had a little bit of athleticism. Sometimes I felt that he rolled too early, or he didn't understand when to be in the dunker spot versus when to be like on that low block trying to board up. And by boarding up, I mean to be able to attack long rebounds. And that messed with the Celtics spacing, especially if they were running an empty side on the strong side and somebody come off that empty side to try and pressure the rim. If Bassey was in the mid post rather than in the dunker spot, or if he hadn't even cleared out to make it like a 5-out offense with nobody in the, down low, now there was an extra low man that could rotate over, and it was killing possessions quite early. And I think that anyone that's coming into this Celtic system, especially a non-shooter, they need to understand the benefits of relocating to drag defenders away from the baseline, to drag defenders out of the paint. They need to understand the benefits of being a solid screen and move guy, a solid veer screener, a short roll, and understand that when someone's driving on this Celtics team, you want as much spacing as possible because you need to be giving out kick-out opportunities to shooters. If you've got Bassey on that mid to low block and his defender's there, but then you have a Hauser in the weak side corner, and now when you skip that ball, it's got to get past Bassey's defender too, that spacing is not ideal. It's suboptimal spacing. And that happened a few times during the Summer League. And I get it. It's meant to be choppy. It's Summer League basketball. Vegas is never going to be a place during the summer where you go and watch high-level execution. Put him around some NBA guys, he's going to understand the need for that spacing quite quickly, especially some skip passes are getting like tipped or some baseline swings are getting tipped. It's going to be quickly told to him like, yo, you need to relocate when people are driving. I think Bryant already knows those little things, and Bryant is another guy who can catch and shoot if he needs to. I'd also rely on him more as like a DHO guide, some dribble handoffs around the wing or on the elbows. I think that's an area where Neemias is actually really underrated, is his passing skill, especially out of a post-up. And if you wanted to put pressure on a team, especially a team with a bunch of non-shooting bigs, you want to try and take away their ability to play out of the post a bit. I think if you've got Bassey there and you've got Bassey on the post, you're taking that away just because you don't trust that passing. So I'm a little bit higher on the idea of Bryant than what I am on Bassey. But the main thing, the whole point of me recording this episode today is I do not like the current center rotation. That is the problem. And I think that there's going to be a bunch of people out there that are like, hey, this is the weakest part of the rotation right now. this is the area that needs to be improved. But unless you're getting somebody back via a trade that involves Simons or Niang or whoever, then the free agency market's really your only option. And you don't want to be going into the second apron again for somebody like a Thomas Bryant or a Charles Bassey. But you also don't want to let these guys come off the board and not have another option available to you going into the season. Because not only is it a lack of high-end talent, there's a lack of depth there. If Neemias gets hurt for a prolonged period, touch wood, that doesn't happen. If Garza gets hurt for a prolonged period, touch wood again, that doesn't happen. You're really screwed at the 5 considerably. So just having that extra depth is going to be important. I think that the way the Celtics play as well, with the way they played the last year or two with a lot of double big at times, that's not going to be possible right now just due to a lack of depth. So picking up Thomas Bryant, picking up Charles Bassey, one of those two makes sense to me. It's just whether or not A, the Celtics are an appealing option for either of those two. B, Brad Stevens sees either of them as somebody that they can grow their value and potentially flip, or somebody that could emerge as a rotational piece. And again, whether or not Boston is of the belief that they're going to be able to make another move between now and the February 2026 trade deadline to get back out of the second apron, if picking one of these guys up is going to put them in there. So I'm just curious now. I want to know what everybody else feels about this, whether or not you'd be on board with picking up Thomas Bryant, picking up Charles Bassey, or whether you're happy running with the 3 of, Neemias, Queta, Neemias, Garza, and Tillman. So just let me know what you're feeling there. I've shared my thoughts on this quite a lot. I'm going to be doing more solo episodes, I think, moving forwards. It's going to take me a while to get comfortable, to get entertaining. It's going to take me a minute because I'm going to need to feel really comfortable before I start cracking jokes and no one's laughing. No one laughs when I crack jokes anyway, to be fair. But let me know what you think of the format as well. I'll be back again. If I'm doing solo, it's going to be nearly daily, I think. Obviously, during the summer, it's a lot harder. Make sure you're signing up to the Celtics Chronicle newsletter. Make sure you're hitting subscribe. I'll catch you again soon. Peace.